If you've got a bunch of unwanted inventory that you've been sitting on for days, weeks, months, years, ship it to Fanatics Marketplace and let them do all the work. Just make sure when you ship it, you use the promotional code Cajun, all capital letters, CAJUN. Hey guys, Brian with Cajun Cardboard coming at you from the great state of Louisiana with Matt Harpring of the Utah. No, this is not Matt Harpring of the Utah Jazz. This is Adam Gray, founder of former Basketball Card Fanatic Magazine. That's what this episode's about. We want to hear Adam on the Cajun Cardboard YouTube channel tell the story about how the Basketball Card Fanatic Magazine started, its heyday, highlights, and then we're going to talk about, your decision to let Basketball Card Fanatic go after over 4 years, almost 4.5 years, Adam. Welcome to the channel, and let's tell some stories, dude.
Bittersweet day, man. Bittersweet day. Thanks for having me. I'm feeling good. I'm happy. Everything's good over here in the Gray home. But I'm glad for the platform to be able to share the story. I don't know how many people are going to care to hear me talk about this, but I hope it's more than one or two, hopefully.
No, I mean, if it's about basketball cards, they're going to click. We'll get 1,000 views because people care about basketball cards. They cared about Basketball Card Fanatic Magazine. You were an affiliate partner, which means I'm going to have to keep on working. I thought I was going to retire from all the affiliate partnership money you were paying me to promote apparently I failed in my duties.
No, you didn't. You did great. I wish you wouldn't have sold so much, because now I got to refund people, but I'm still going to pay you because that's how these things work. So
yeah, look, it's the deal. Like, you can't just drop the rope and then walk away. Like, you got to make things right with everybody. You got to refund people because people paid for subscriptions in advance. And I know you will do the right thing of all people in the hobby. I have no doubts, but it's a pain in the butt, Adam. And I know you got to go through all that stuff. That's the practical stuff people don't think about when you dissolve or wind up a business, whatever you want to call it, in your particular state. So there's practical stuff that you've got to do to tidy that up. And I know that sucks too, but hopefully it won't take very long. And then you can hitch your wagon to a new gig and get cranking. Tell me about it, man. 51 issues. Is that right? 52 issues. This Steph Curry's just arrived yesterday. And so I was like, man, these issues, that the very issue just arrived at my office, which is where, you ship my stuff. And I love to get the hard copies. I always tried to you were like, you should promote the digital copies. I'm like, dude, I'm old. I want to read a magazine. I want a card in the shape of a magazine. And that's what it was. So I always tried to promote it. Like, if you're old and dumb like me and you want to just read words on paper instead of looking at the screen all day, get the hard copies. And so mine arrived yesterday. And I was like, man, I got Adam tomorrow, and this is the last one I'll get. It's the last one, man.
It's a bummer. The tagline that we came up with after we started printing was your monthly mail day. Get your monthly mail day. And that was one of the things, as people sent me a million messages yesterday after I put the post out there on Instagram, sort of announcing that we're done. Issue 52 was in fact our last issue. By the way, I'm submitting the final digital copy today for any subscribers. So that'll be the last one of those. But after putting that out, one of the things people said is, gosh, I'm going to miss getting that magazine every month. It was really fun. It's like the vision in the beginning was, can we make it like the old Beckett, where you were really excited to see which player and specifically which card showed up on the front of the issue every month. And you were excited to see which pieces in the magazine, reflected cards that you were interested in. And then there's the learning component. So there's the collecting the magazines component and the learning component and the entertainment part. And, the fact that it shows up in basically a big team bag, it's like getting a big card in the mail.
It really is a mail day. I'm going to have to replace 12 mail days now. You're going to make me buy 12 more cards a year just so I can replace that monthly mail day.
And we were, you told me a few months ago, you were like, Adam, if you're having a hard time financially with it, why don't you raise prices? Everybody else has raised prices. Because we charge $125 a year. And the cost on the magazine for 12 issues is 100. We should have, It was 100.
It's not going to be 20. I wouldn't. Again, man, we're in a freaking. Most of the people that are going to take the time out of their day to order Basketball Card Fanatic magazine are probably buying hundreds, if not thousands, of dollars worth of cards on a monthly basis.
You're right.
$20, $10. What's the difference? I got a smoothie this morning. It was $10.49. Trying to do the right thing, a healthy smoothie, right? The sugar-free kind. $10.49. I'm like, I don't know. It's
And
gone in 30 seconds. The magazine, at least I have forever, you know, double it. It could be two smoothies at least.
It was $108. So you're just going to just look, what were you doing, Adam? It's $108 to print 12 issues and to send them out. So best case scenario, we make $17. But if we have an affiliate program where we're paying them money to get the, like, we're losing money on all those things. And people are like, people would probably be like, Adam, you're a CPA. Like, didn't you get that the math didn't work here? But the idea, so this is how it happened. We start the magazine in I think it's August of 2000. And I just said, I'm just going to do this thing. I'm going to do it basically a digital magazine.
2000. Wait, when was COVID? Like March?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you started after COVID, just after COVID, just after The Last Dance. That's literally the month after, I think, or close to it.
We started right as we're like, as the market's just like blowing up, right? And when I say we, like, I literally was like, one day I was sitting there and I was like, man, I just want to do something where people could write. Like, we don't have enough good writing. And at that point, we didn't have enough good podcasts. We didn't have enough good anything. So it's like, let's start this thing where people can write about things that they know a lot about. We can compile it, add in a couple of pictures. I'll just do that. We'll put it into a PDF and we'll send it out, and it'll, you know, I'll charge people $10 for it or whatever. And so the first one we gave away for free, and, you know, hundreds of people were like, oh yeah, that was awesome. Thank you for that. And then when we said, hey, we're going to charge $10 a piece for this digital thing going forward, something like 50% of the people were just out. But then there were still these 50% that were like, sure. And then they started paying. And then it was like, after 4 or 5 issues, it was like, we need like a subscription model, like with like a real website and real subscription and real payments. And because otherwise, if people have to go to PayPal every time to pay for this thing, it's not going to work. So
barrier to entry. Yeah. You
right.
want to make it as easy as possible. Right.
So we started the website. And then after we started the website, it was, or as we were starting the website, I was like, you know what, this isn't going to last unless we move this to print. And let me back up a little bit. After the first issue, I got a message from Black Griffin Cards. Do you know Black Griffin Cards?
You know, I've interacted, but I don't recall what it specifically was. But I've seen his, you know, page, and it's like, well, I know who he collects. It's hella impressive, right?
He's a great.
And I know he was a big contributor with you on BCF for sure. Yeah, tell us about him.
So this part of the story is just, it's awesome because I knew that people needed the content and that they wanted all this. They wanted the written content, and I knew I had a pretty good eye for like understanding what was interesting, right? Like that's something I've always been good at when it comes to the hobby. Is like, this is an interesting story and people are going to like to hear it. And so I thought, what if we could put that in this sort of like PDF format? And Black Griffin Cards, he and I had done 2 deals before this. One was for a Rodman Red. Okay. I'd sold him a Rodman Red for like $2,000 back in the day.
20 now. So
yeah,
30 I still maybe depend on the grade.
Yeah. As I look back at any of the big cards I sold, I obviously didn't do well on any of them, but
should have left the price out. Go ahead.
Yeah. So then, well, you know, I'm joking. You love when people like him get the card because he loves it, right? That's the best. And I had sold him a Rodman Jambalaya, and he had sent me, as part of this, he had sent me a drawn picture of one of my favorite players, and I was like, and it's beautiful. I in fact I have it in a box right over here. But he just like struck me as like this interesting, different, thoughtful, interesting, different sort of guy. And he'd written me when he acquired the Rodman. He actually sent me this message that was like paragraphs long about like how much he appreciated what I did in the hobby. But it wasn't just like a build me up thing. It was like a very thoughtful, kind message. And so I had him in my phone after I did the deal. I wrote down his name as Rodman Red, Kevin, Black Griffin Cards, or all this other stuff. And he messaged me after I put out the first issue, and he goes, Adam, I want to work with you on this. And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, well, I want to design the magazine. The biggest thing that you're going to need help with is like, you're going to figure out the rest, like what goes in the magazine, and you're going to be amazing at it. But like, I am an artist. He's professionally an artist. He has a master's. He's like really, really good. Right. And really smart. He's like, I want to do this. I want to be part of this thing with you, and you need me to help you. And I was like, wow, this is really interesting. And his tone wasn't aggressive or weird. It came across as, again, thoughtful and kind. And the single best decision that I made in the whole 5 years or 4.5 years that we did BCF was to say to Kevin, let's do this together. Let's see if we can make this work. And so after 3 months of him like twisting my arm to like, we need to change it this way, we need to change it that way, we suddenly had this thing that was really good looking and people really liked it. And we looked at each other like, why don't we try printing this? But the cost of printing, Brian, is so much money that it was like, can we actually do this? And you do know
1,000 posters, remember?
I was gonna say you're one of the only people who knows. What?
Yeah.
Can you tell me what these posters cost to print? You probably don't want to.
Well, I don't know, but I can tell you, if you were making what $17 on a yearly subscription, I think with shipping FedEx, I'm probably making about $8 a poster. And people still bitch. They're like, $75 for a poster. That's stupid. And I was like, well, look, the second one's only $10. That's my point. It's like, I've got to ship it and it's like $50. Some
much
states,
money.
it's $60 for me to ship it in a FedEx tube.
People have no idea when you set out to do something like this, the amount of like costs and the things that you have to do, especially I don't want to say anybody can do something digital, but digital, like it has its own overhead. There's other things there and there's other issues. But a website, because we run a website, I know what it costs to run at least a basic website like ours. Yeah. But to print stuff and send it to thousands of people, holy crap, Brian! Like it's so expensive. Yeah. So anyway, so I'm being long-winded, but with Kevin, it was the best decision ever. And after about 4 or 5 months, we were getting ready to do the website, and it's like, let's try to print this thing. And so I'm gonna come back here real quick and grab something. So you're gonna laugh at this. This is our first issue that we printed. I
was going to ask you who was on issue number 1 because I think I came in the game a little bit later. It better be. Well, of course it is. Yeah.
We printed.
Card in the world.
You're going to laugh at this, kid. We printed 8 copies of this. 8.
Well, it looks flimsy. Is it different material?
It is. It's totally different.
It's got to be. Yeah.
It was a test. I sent one to. So the big interview in this issue was Nat. So I sent one to Nat, and then I got one. Remington was another guy who worked on it. He got one, and Kevin got one. I don't even know who the other 4 people are who we sent one to. They were just like free copies that we sent to friends. But look, I didn't even realize at that point that a magazine needs a certain number of pages. So we sent it to the printer with an odd number of pages. It has to be divisible by 4, by the way. So they said, we need you to give 1 more page. Check out what's on the back of this magazine. You're just going to laugh your head off. This is the back of our magazine. It's the back of the Michael Jordan card.
Because you had no sponsors. Now it's like all these beautiful, glossy, high-def sponsors. And back then it was just like, well, we need a page. Let's just put the back of the Jordan with some gum, with some wax stains on the back from the pack, right?
So I get this thing in the mail and I look at it and I'm like, guys, this is it. This is what we have to do. This is going to be, if this magazine is going to actually work, we got to make this thing work. And we print issue 8, which is the Luca Gold. And it took off, man. It did. I shouldn't say it took off. We never sold more than 500 issues. Never once.
Your timing was good though, man. Yeah, it was great timing. And it was, at a point when the hobby was goo goo gaga for basketball cards, post Last Dance, post COVID, post price spike, everything. And that Luca probably coincided with the ultimate hobby bubble in the first quarter of 2021. If I had to guess.
It did, but here's the thing: getting the word out on something like that.
No, I know it's tough.
It's really hard. And nobody, and
Yeah.
the thing that we knew from the very beginning was it was 2020, or at that point it's 2021, and no one at that point is like going crazy for magazines like they did 20 years ago with Beckett. But we thought if we implement some of the sort of things that we can to make it interesting to want to get it in the mail, there's going to be a market for it, and there was, and this is like. The part that I would point out that I think, maybe a lot of people might not realize, it's really hard to shut something down when there are people who really, really love it. And, although we never had, like I said, we never had more than 500 sponsors. We never had more than 500. We sort of went between like 300 and 480, like somewhere in that range for the last couple of years.
Yeah.
When you have hundreds of people who are really excited about something and they love it and it was making money, and it was enough money for it to be interesting to us.
Yeah.
It's really hard to close something down like that because you hear all these messages of like, you need to keep going and this is great and I love this and I look forward to it every month. But like, it's also like, there's only so much time in life. And
I've thought about it, Adam. I mean, I'm not going to do this channel forever. I mean, I have no intention of stopping anytime soon, but I can't do this forever. I mean, at some point I'm going to have to hand the baton off or just shut the thing down. And I mean, golly, man, I've met and spoken with so many people, and because you're you know, you got your podcast as well. It's like, you don't want to let people down, but at the same time, it's like, damn, I'm going to have grandkids at some point, right? You can see the gray starting to come in. I mean, I'm there, I'm close, right? So I don't know, you know, I don't know if I'll be doing it forever. So I might be, you know, coming on your podcast to tell people why I had to shut down the Cajun Cardboard YouTube channel. You know, hopefully I can still form words and I'm not drooling on myself by then. But you know, that time might be coming. I feel you, man. I feel the emotion behind it too.
There are companies that are designed to be able to be sold and make money for the creators of the company.
That's right.
Yeah. I don't know how you feel about Cajun Cardboard, but I knew BCF was never that. I remember I come from the world of private equity where I'm well acquainted with creating a company that then you build, a lot of times take financing, and then you sell that company, and this is your big moment. And it's a wonderful thing when people are able to do that. Making a magazine was never ever.
It's because it is a product, but it's not a product. You're not selling a product, you're selling yourself, because it's your thoughts, it's your ideas, it's your vision. And so if you know, there's nothing tangible there for people to buy. Anybody can have access to a printer. Anybody can, you know, copy and cut pictures of cards. It's the decisions that are made. It's the access to the people that wrote the articles. It's the thought that went into designing the magazine. And so without you, it has no value.
So when
Cajun Cardboard is worthless without me. I mean, you can call it Cajun Cardboard. If it's some guy from Wisconsin talking, it's not going to be the same thing, you know, and that's why I have no value, you know, there's no value here either.
Well, there might be, I don't know, but what I would say is there were people who reached out to me to say, hey, are you sure that you don't want to try to get somebody else to buy this? And I was like, I don't want to be like conceited here, but BCF was Kevin.
Yeah,
and
you
me.
And Kevin, dude. Yeah,
it was us.
That's not conceited. That's a fact. Like, during the sale, you said, Brian, would you like to take over BCF Magazine? No, it's a lot of work.
And let me follow that up. Let me follow that up real quick with just saying it wasn't just us, because it was all of the great guests in every issue. But that again, that was like, that wasn't something that you could hand over to. I wanted to. I sort of thought at the beginning, like, is there any chance that somebody sort of introduced it in my mind early on? I was like, maybe. And then you think about it, and it's like, no, like, it's just what you said. Really. It's more about
yeah. Yeah. Well, you know, you're definitely, it was a product, but you were essentially selling a service, and a lot of people are going to miss that. Why? What is your favorite issue? Well, just tell me, why was issue number 24 your favorite issue of all time?
You told me it should have been number 23, and you were obviously right.
You screwed that up, man. You missed the boat, right? But that's it. There's no doubt. I mean, that's got to be number one.
I messed it up.
Number 24 on paper, number one in your heart. That's what they like to say.
My favorite issue, this is going to sound silly, but my favorite issue was probably issue 51, where we did that top 25 of the first 25 years of the century. You were part of that. I loved how that turned out. I loved how it turned out. Yeah. I loved our conversation afterwards, where you and I were like so disagreeing on something specific on the list. I love it. It's the sort of stuff that drives conversation. But here's what I would say about this. That really like puts an emphasis on why we had to stop, because I think there are people who are probably going to think, oh, your sponsors stopped sponsoring. No, their sponsors were super solid to the very end. In fact, at the end, I was like, oh man, like a couple months before the end, I was like, I need to keep making the magazine going. I hope that we never lose our sponsors. We never lost our sponsors. They were all still there at the very end. There was never even any inkling that they were out, right? Yeah. Any of them. And the sponsors were wonderful sponsors. We're talking about Fanatics Collect, CGC. We're talking about Leland's. We're talking about Panini. Like, these guys are all paying sponsors to have their ads in the magazine because they believed in what the magazine represented. And so, you know, why did we stop? Well, we can get into that in a little bit, but it was so much. It's so much work, right? To create this thing. And this really puts the emphasis on it. So this issue right here is the Shaquille O'Neal on the front with the PMG championship. The reason that card is on the front is because I was able to meet a gentleman who pulled one of the Ultimate Gem Master redemptions, which you and I both own a big card from. Yeah. Right. Pretty big card, right?
What could you imagine? Let me go ahead and explain to people I know what it is, you know what it is, but dummy it down.
I will. I'll make it real fast.
Everybody to understand if you pulled that card, what that meant.
So this gentleman bought a pack, got this redemption. The redemption entitled him to one of the last 5, specifically number 50 of 50, the complete set.
Not one, the whole set.
The whole set with Jordan, Shaq, Kobe, Duncan, everybody in the set. And he pulled 50 of 50, got it in the mail, took all of his best cards out of holders, put his cards all in those great holders. And that's why today, if you ever find one that's in really great condition from that set, it's almost always number 50 of 50.
Yeah.
Because this gentleman opened this pack. He gets it, keeps it for, I don't know how many years. It was almost 20 years, and sells the set for 20 grand, right?
Oh,
at one point, he tried to get $2,000. No one would give him $2,000. He eventually sells it for 20 grand. And now today that set because of the condition that those individual cards are in, I estimated it to be pretty close to $2 million. And it's like
thinking, I was just about to ask you, what do you think it is in today's dollars? I mean, if Jordan's 200 to 250,
Jordan's more though, because it's like one of the nicest Jordans.
Well, it's one of the nicest Jordans.
The Mitch Richmond,
the
Mitch Richmond was a 10 and sold privately for like 40 grand. Like,
we're talking about how many in that set? I know 123 in the regular reds.
I don't recall.
That would be the pull of a lifetime. I mean, I know there's other pulls probably where you could pull a $5 million card, but like to pull the entire championship PMG set uncirculated all at once, shipped to you in perfect condition, that's got to be the ultimate dream for somebody who reads Basketball Card Fanatic Magazine or lives and breathes 90s basketball cards.
And then the key part that I just want to make sure we highlight, he kept them in such good condition that they're the ones that are worth the most. They're the ones that all have the biggest price. So I make, we produce this magazine. We take, I don't even know how many hours, like just so many hours trying to emphasize like how awesome this is. We try to publicize it. We do everything we can. And it sells 400 and something ish copies of the magazine. Yeah. And then there's some digital ones that go out too. So in the end, it's 500, 600, 700 total people who probably get to see it. And then it goes to LCSs where some of them sit on the counter and who knows how many dozens of people see those, but it's maybe 1,000 people total who see it. Yeah. Then I make a reel about this guy, right? This reel that I make about this guy has now been seen by 1.4 million people. Yeah. And so you sort of look at it and you go, okay, they both are telling the same story. This one has more details, but this one gets seen by...
It's the method of dissemination. It can't be paralleled. You just can't do it, man. The world's changed, Adam. As much as we love it and wish we could go back to, 1989, getting a baseball Beckett magazine at the local card shop, the world's changed, man. I don't necessarily like it better, but we've got to adapt and move on.
But when I sort of, and I don't mean to be crass about this, but when I sort of looked at that and I was like, I can spend my whole life doing something for this small group of people who I care a lot about, or I can do it, for many, like for in a lot of cases, hundreds of thousands of people. Like you and I did a reel on your collection that you sold. I can't remember what it was at last time, but it's like over 100,000 people have seen that reel, Yeah. And so to me, it became somewhere along the way, it became more about like how many people can we educate if we do it the right, like the most efficient way. Yeah. And bring into the hobby through that and tell like the good, positive, wonderful stories about the hobby that are educational and entertaining. How much of that can I do it if that's my sole focus, rather than having so much of my focus on something that is wonderful and I've loved and so many people have loved, but it just doesn't touch very many people.
Yeah. Did you find, Adam, that since mid 2020, when you started to dive into Basketball Card Fanatic Magazine and put in all that work and all that time and energy, did that cut into your collecting? Did the pace of the growth of your PC slow down? I've noticed that since I've done content, it's a blessing and a curse. My growth of my PC, and like sometimes I'm like, oh my God, I completely forgot to check Fanatics weekly auction. Like I was like, I completely forgot to check. Like that's not normal. Like that's normally number one driving force of my, hobby existence is to make sure I check search Michael Jordan in the Fanatics weekly auction to see if there's any of them in there that I don't have that I want to make a run at. I just thought about it right when we were about to log on. I'm like, man, it's Wednesday. I haven't even looked at it. I don't even know what's in there. And they're an affiliate partner of mine, and I collect Jordan, and it's the one thing that I care about. And I've narrowed my search down. But content is, putting out the content is kind of taking a priority to collecting, which the blessing part is that it saved me a lot of money. So I'm actually making a little money, making the content and saving money because I'm not buying cards at quite the same rate. Thank God, because I ran out of money to begin with. But did you find that was the case with you with BCF for sure for a 4-year run there? Yeah, 4 years.
As my collecting journey has gone on, I, just like you, have found myself gravitating towards a smaller number of things. And so I looked at my, when we got to the end of last year, I bought 4 cards last year, a whole year, Brian.
Wow.
4 cards.
I can't say that.
But I looked at tens of thousands. I mean, I looked at every auction.
Sure. Yeah.
My doing, this is the other thing I'd say, doing creative things.
I mean, you sell.
Not whatever I needed to pay for those 4. I would have to go back and look. Yeah. Not a ton, but
do I have it right? You got 100 in your collection? Is that your collection? You try to stay at the 100 number?
100 items, but some of those are like sets.
Fair enough. Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, but that's still, I like that. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I can't do it. I wish I could, but I can't. But I like that.
So we collect. One of the reasons we collect is we're creative, right? Like we need a creative outlet. And when we see cards and we think about creating a set or why we love the aesthetics of it, or like how, even like the numeric pieces, like how many of them there are or how often they came out of packs, that fulfills this creative aspect of ourselves that we need to fulfill. But then when we start doing content, that is sort of taken up by that content piece. And so we might not feel it the same, but I will say this, when I see the right card in an auction right now, which is part of my job, is I look at every auction, I look at them all fairly in detail. Like I spend at least an hour or so with every auction every week.
Yeah. Not just basketball cards.
Not just basketball cards. When I see something that I really want, I'm like, I got to go get that thing. And I had it happen 3 times in the last month. And
what were they? Tell us.
The LeBron logo man from Immaculate 2013.
Yeah. Okay.
Just a huge card. I didn't have a single LeBron card in my collection. I had one LeBron
logo man. I also own 0 LeBrons now.
So I know. I heard about that.
Recent development. Yep.
You always got to be moving, right? Like something's happening.
Yeah. I like to buy high and sell low, so it's worked out great.
Well, I think I spent more on that card than all but 2 cards I've ever bought. So I didn't buy low. I certainly didn't buy low. I traded for a Duncan logo man from the SP Game Use sets. There's several of that card. And then the big one is second big one is I bought the first ever John Stockton 1/1 out of 97 Ultra, which I'm totally stoked about.
Is that a masterpiece? Like, is it say the one and only masterpiece on the back? That's
in 97 gave us 5 1/1s for most players, 4 from Showcase and 1 from Ultra. But the 1 from Ultra came out 3 months ahead of those 4 from Showcase.
Yeah.
So I'm all in on that. Can you imagine finding the Jordan of that?
That's theoretically that's the base gold platinum masterpiece, right? In that order, right? That's the big brother, the biggest of the big brother, right?
Grant used to own it. I don't know who he moved it to, but when it popped up, I was like, and it's a set where how a lot of those 1/1s, like a duplicate one has showed up or fakes have showed up.
Yeah.
It's one set that doesn't have any of that. There's only
any of that. No shenanigans. Do you remember the first thing I said to you when you told me Basketball Card Fanatic Magazine was shutting down? I said, have you thought about quarterly or annual?
You did.
And so I'll pose the question again and let you answer that, because I think a lot of the people that are watching are probably going to want to do the same thing. If it's something where it's like you're always up against the gun and the deadline and this and that, did you think about backing that down maybe and adjusting that? Or would that be just too much work to change the subscription model and all that stuff? Or maybe people would expect it to be 4 times as big if it was quarterly, and it would be the exact same amount of work.
I don't know. It's a really good question. I'm already working on a couple of other things that will involve print. I'm involved in one other thing at least that will involve print that might lead into another thing that will involve print. But it's I don't know. I don't know what we'll do in the end. There's a chance that we might go back and do that, but I don't want to say that. I mean, I don't think that there's like a ton of people who are waiting for that. Maybe, like I said, a couple hundred people who've subscribed and would be interested. And I kind of like that about it, honestly. I kind of like that there's this small group, because I'm here talking about this right now. The majority of the people who are listening to this have never even seen the magazine, right? They've never even seen it.
Of course.
And and the fact that it like was this like little band of people who were real like crazy collectors who just love the stories of the hobby, like, and you know that it'll continue to exist. It's cool to see. It's cool to see him hit eBay every now and then. You know, you'll see somebody selling their lot of 3 old BCF issues. It makes me wonder, you know, like, are people going to collect them as the years go by? I have one friend who sent me a picture of his BCF copies that he's framed and hung on his wall. And I'm like,
that's pretty cool.
Amazing.
That's cool.
Now, I know there's Cajun Cardboard hierarchy posters everywhere. So you have to point that out. I get it. I get that everybody's already doing that. But for me, that was a big deal, you know, to create something that people loved. And will we do it again? There's a chance. There's for sure a chance. Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool. Maybe we'll do a retro throwback, and we'll get, you know, maybe it'll be 10 articles. It'll be 1 issue. It'll be the 2026, right? Just a one-time deal in that year. If you want it, buy it. If you don't. That's fine.
One of the ideas that we had was, you remember I proposed this a couple months ago. What if we figured out a way to get the hierarchy onto the centerfold of the magazine, right? So there's always a centerfold like this.
Yeah. Easily. We could do that.
Wouldn't that have been cool? We could have made that happen.
It would have to be, the problem is it would have to be, you know, it'd have to be like you'd have to turn it, you know, to look
That's
at
okay.
It's got to go top to bottom, you know, to fit.
People always wanted to give me a horizontal card so that they could, you know, like, they could put it on the front of the magazine. Because it was always the collector's choice what card they wanted to put on the magazine. And as long as we could get an image that was solid enough of their card from their collection, then we would put it on, you know, the cover. We could never do it with a horizontal card though, because magazines aren't horizontal. They're vertical.
Now what? I know you're talking about doing some other projects. You know, the one thing that I've recognized you're exceptionally talented at, I think you're a one of one, is, you know, some of these auction houses, they'll reach out to you and they'll say, Adam, we really want to promote this card. And then I think they just hand you a blank canvas and say, Adam, go tell a story. And then you are really, really good at that. You did it with 2 of my cards, which are not rare cards, but you made them make sense. And you told a story about them, not because the cards themselves, but because of how I acquired the cards and why I was getting rid of the cards. You do a really amazing job at that. You're much more thoughtful than I am when it comes to stuff like that. Who are some of the auction houses that you do stuff like that for? I know Fanatics for sure. Heritage, I think. Yeah. Who else? Talk to me.
So I'm really, thank you, by the way, like, way kinder than you should be. I just try to tell the story. I try to still tell the story of the card from the perspective of a collector. I you know, you can say whatever you want about me. There's plenty of people who don't like me. I love cards. And if you don't know that, then I don't know what to tell you. So like I know how to look at a card and say, okay, that's the story that's interesting. And where most of the hobby really focuses on value, I try not to. And every time I do focus on value, I end up looking back and going, gosh, I wish I wouldn't have done that. I wish I would have just stuck to the part that's more about why the thing matters and why people like it. But Dr. Beckett once told me, he's like, Adam, you got to marry those 2 things together, because some people really need to hear that financial part. And so I try to do it, but then I've got one guy, he actually recently unfollowed me, which made me sad because I considered him a pretty good friend. He was always telling me, he's like, you always talk about money. You're always talking about numbers. And I'm like, I don't think I do that nearly as much.
I don't think you do it nearly as much as me.
Well,
and 90% of the rest of the hobby.
Please don't think I'm judging anybody either. I think people should do whatever they want, but I don't like how you're always trying to make things increase in value by talking about their money. And I'm like, I'm not trying to do that. My goal is to tell the story in a way so that the auction house can say, wow, a lot of people liked the story and it drove some of them to come look at the auction. It's not about selling the items for more money. It's about brand awareness, top of funnel. Is this interesting enough to get people to go there? And then people realize, wow, that auction house sponsored this guy to do that. And that's making the hobby better. That's the goal. But even as that's the goal, people have sort of, I've gotten messages and heard through the grapevine, oh, so-and-so thinks that you're doing this. And it's, man, I don't know, Brian, you're never going to make everybody happy. But the auction houses, which it's Fanatics Collect, it's Golden, it's Alt, it's Heritage, REA, Leland's, Card Hobby, MC Sports Cards, Hoodies. I probably left somebody out. Like, it's all of them as often as they'll let me create content for them. And as often as they'll let me do it, I'm doing it because I love telling the stories. There's some stories I'll tell you the truth. There's some cards that I'll get a message on where it's like, hey, can you talk about this? Can you share like an angle on this card? And I'll be like, man, that card sucks. I don't want to do that one. Like that one's really hard to come up with a story, but that doesn't happen very often. When it does, it's tough. For the most part, I get to tell stories about really awesome, and almost every card has really great stories to tell.
Big cards for sure. Big cards.
Yeah. Well, but I mean, like when I started,
Adam, you could tell a story about the silver Luka Doncic PSA 10. That might be one of the most ridiculous stories in the history of the hobby, for God's sakes. Or a Zion base prism PSA 10. You know what I mean?
It's easy.
It's amazing. The card itself doesn't have to be the story. It's what effect that card had on the hobby and maybe the world, during that era, when it was acquired or when it is being sold,
Yeah, can you tell the key is you're right. The key is, can you tell somebody something like this one with that redemption, right? Can you tell somebody something where they're like, man, that was just awesome. I'm so glad that I know that. Even if it's like not directly about that card, but if it's about that set or something. Yes. And then again, if it's all positive and good and like, I mean, it doesn't actually have to be all positive. It can be, hey, this was once X and now it's
not
Y.
all positive. The dude sold it for 20 grand. You know what I mean? But that's not why the story's great. The story is great because there's only 5 in the world. There's only 5 of these redemption cards in the world. This dude pulled one of them and preserved it.
But back to my friend who unfollowed me, who like, again, I shouldn't be so sensitive about these things, Brian, but I am. I'm way too sensitive about these things. When I would do these ones where it's like, hey, this card was X and now it's Y, it's gone down so much. He'd be like, oh man, just hate how you're always focusing on your values of stuff. And I'm always just like, dude, I don't.
It does matter, dude. To try to, remove the investment aspect of sports cards from the hobby in general, try to neuter the hobby from the financial aspect of the cards is preposterous. It's preposterous. You don't have to emphasize it, you don't have to prioritize it, but to act like it's not a hyper relevant part of the sports card hobby is naive and it's
and people want it. They do. The thing that I wish people understood is this: to make something go viral, you have to appeal to something in someone. And so I'm constantly tasked with, how do I tell this story so it has a chance to have some virality, but also I'm teaching things. And so if you go watch any one of my reels, say, what was the thing Adam wanted me to know here that I didn't know before, or that the vast majority of people didn't know before? Like, what is he teaching? And I use the word teaching. I know it sounds like I'm like holier than thou when I say that, but I'm really like trying to teach, because I realize, like, I look at the numbers and it's like my average reel right now is viewed by over 40,000 people. And it's like, it's viewed by so many people that aren't in the hobby and that don't know, and share to these people. Like, if we can share those points that are so interesting and so cool in a way where like people who aren't collectors get it, and or who are sort of on the fringes and they get it and they go, gosh, that's so cool. Like, if I can do that, then I feel like I'm really doing the hobby great. And that, honestly, that's what this tried to do. If I could have touched 1.4 million people with that, then I would have done it. But we were hitting 500 people. And so,
Well, I'm sorry to see it go, but there's always hope. Maybe there'll be a little special issue at some point in the future, and I'd be happy to collaborate with you and help you out in any way I can. And that's it. Tell people about your podcasts. Well, first of all, tell them how to find you on Instagram. Here, I'll pull it up so people know how to find you on Instagram. Adam, I think I always get your name messed up. I wish you'd just change the name. So here, I got it right here.
I was never
the real guy, the real 27 guy, which, again, to explain it again for everybody and me again, I know you've told me 100 times.
So 27 was always my lucky number, but I'll bet you don't know why it was my lucky number.
I don't. It was your vertical leap.
I wish it was my vertical leap. My vertical leap topped out at like 18 inches.
Oh, damn, man. You were a pick and pop. You were like a Euro big space.
I still am. That's still how I play.
Here's what's funny. Let me just tell you a funny story. So just to be clear, Adam is the real 27 guy, on Instagram, and you can also find him on YouTube as well. The funny thing was, the first time I saw you at the National, I don't know if anybody's ever told you this. Like, I'm 6'4". I fully expected you to be like 5'8". I don't know what it was. I don't know why, Adam. I have no idea, dude. But when I saw you, I was like, that dude looks just like Adam, because we had seen each other. I'd seen your face, obviously, and we had known each other in the hobby. And then when I went to my very first National in Atlantic City, I think it was Atlantic City. It was probably Atlantic City. Were you in Atlantic City?
I wasn't in Atlantic City.
No, it was Chicago. It was Chicago then. It was Chicago. I ran up to you. I think you were right by Grant's table, Slayton's table. And I was like, looks just like Adam. That guy's big. He looks like a power forward. He's like 6'4", 200 something pounds. And it was you. And I was like, God dang, he's much bigger than he looks like in on video. So
I think
that was funny.
I had a client once when I was working in fund administration who was like, I worked with him for 4 years, never saw him, or like, he was just like on the phone every day. His name's Steven, worked in San Francisco. And we finally went, me and my boss, right? Me and my boss went to go see him. And my boss is like 5. His name's Steve. He's like 5'5", like 5'4", not a big guy at all. And then I'm 6'4", right? And we walked in, and Steven was just blown away. Sorry, Steven, the client's name was Steven. He looked at me and he's like, I've talked to you all these years. I would have guessed you were the 5'4" one, and you were the big one. But you know how it is. Like, some of the guys that are like,
it's weird. Yeah.
Some of the guys that are like just really nice and jovial, and like they're a lot of times they're the big guys, right?
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I'm not the nice jovial guy. I like to think I am, but
maybe when you do videos, you need to stand back so everybody can tell how tall you are and stand next.
Can I tell you about 27 real quick though? Because there's a Jordan component.
Yeah, tell me.
So when I was there's a personal side that I'll just make real quick, and that is that I was baptized on the 27th of February. So that's 2/27. Yeah. And I started this 27 thing, and I said 27 is my lucky number. It's 3 to the 3rd. My birthday is March 3rd. Anyway, so there's this long thing there that's sort of more personal. And then one day in 2000, when I was working at the card shop, my boss brought in Legends basketball, and I loved Legends basketball because, like you, I have always been a massive, massive fan of the history of the game. I could talk to you all day long about 1970s basketball, and I was born in the 80s, right? Like, I love vintage basketball. And so when he brought it in, the cases back then, the boxes were in like numeric order. There were these little holograms, NBA holograms on the back, and it went from like 21 to 32. It was a 12-box case.
Yeah.
And so within that case was the number 23. And I was the first person who got to pick a box. So I looked at my boss, Jeff, and I was like, Jeff, like, what do you think? And he's like, Adam, Upper Deck doesn't mess around with stuff like this. Go with the 23 box. So I opened the 23 box up. And remember, my lucky number at this point is 27, which was also in the case. He goes, open the 23 box. And so that was literally like 2 weeks of pay for me to open this one box of cards. But I get the box. I'm opening it up. The first thing on the top is a box topper of Michael Jordan's floor, right? The jumbo floor cards. Mm-hmm. And it was part of the 3-point line was on it. And so that covered the whole cost of the box. I was so happy. I opened the rest of it up. I got an autograph of Paul Arizin. I didn't get any of the out of 50 parallels. I own the Jordan to 100 parallel today, which is a great card. I think it's like the most underrated Jordan card out there. Anyway, so the very next customer to walk in, a guy named Barry Dupre. He's an older gentleman. I think he's still around, but still collecting. He walks in, points up, says, Jeff, hand me a box. Jeff hands him box 27. Barry starts opening the box, gets about halfway through. We're all just sort of gathered around. You remember that image of everybody at a card shop all around one guy who's opening the packs. And Barry stops. We're all just like joking around. He stops, he looks up, and he puts the cards down. And there, the single best card that ever came out of House of Cards packs, ever, like in that card shop's 30-something year history, the Michael Jordan jersey autograph number out of 23. And he sold it that week for $7,000 on eBay, which was the most enormous amount of money that had ever been spent on a basketball card to my knowledge at that point. And not really, but like, it was really like a huge, huge number at that point. Something that would have gone in Beckett, like this big, big deal. Yeah. And I was that close to, because I went away from 27 to go with 23, I didn't get that card. So after that, I became the 27 guy. Everything since then has been the 27 guy. But the funny thing is, because Instagram had the 27 guy, that's some dude who has one picture of a cat, I had to go with the real 27 guy. And now people are like, the real guy, 27. And I'm like, no, the emphasis is not on guy. Emphasis on 27, and nobody cares. But that's it.
Yeah. Well, let's wrap it. This won't be the last time. Obviously, as you know, next time we get you on, we'll talk probably more about cards, less about magazines and careers and career history and stuff like that. But we'll get you on here and we'll do it for sure.
Thank you, Brand.
The real 27 guy, 27 in there. It's on the screen right now that you're watching. And Adam, man, good luck to you. Anything in the future, you know, I'm at your service. Anything you need on my end, any way the Cajun Cardboard channel can help you, you know, it's a platform. You're welcome to it.
Thank you for doing this. More importantly, thank you for helping spread the word. You did as good a job. You did better job than anybody else did ever of that. And seriously, like, I have the numbers to prove it. You talking about the magazine on your show, you know, people know that you care. And so the fact that you were willing to do that, you know, we obviously joked about you getting paid a little bit for it, but like the fact that you were willing to do it, it meant the world to me. And I'm so grateful I'm just grateful for the 4 years that we got to do it, that we got to produce this awesome thing, and so grateful for all the support that everybody gave. And I want to leave with sort of a feeling of thanks and gratitude, because it's one of the coolest things I've ever done in my whole life. And I'm grateful for it.
You got it, man. Yep. Everybody watching, it's not too late to go buy some digital issues, I would assume, right? They can go to the website. What's the website? BCFmag.com.
BCFmag.com. What's your promo code? Cajun?
Promo code Cajun, CAJUN. That's it, man. Just use the promo code Cajun. Go buy some past digital issues. Knock it out. Can they buy all 52 issues?
So there's two things that you can do. There's all 52 issues. You can do that. You can do just a single digital issue if you want to.
What's all 52 issues cost?
$200.
$200 for all 52 issues. That's $4. That's like, I mean, even in Louisiana, that's like almost $4. That's about $4 an issue.
The other thing, you can't see them because they're up here, but there's some of the older issues where we have extras that are printed. Most of them are a lot of them are gone, but there's a couple where we've got like 5 issues left or whatever. The hard part about that is after I announced it yesterday, most of those went too, like most of them have sold, but there's a few left. If you want to go grab them, I wish they were cheaper, but I didn't want somebody to come in and just buy all of them. And so they're there. And if anybody wants to go grab them and I'll send you a copy.
That's awesome. Guys, go check it out, bcfmag.com. These are retro now. These are vintage. These are retro. Go get them before they're gone. Unlimited digital supply, like all of Panini's products nowadays.
Can I show you one other thing that's kind of cool? So we only did this once, but once upon a time, we sent a bunch into CGC and they graded, I think there's 6 copies. I looked at the pop report at one point. There's a few people who have graded them, not me, but not very many. There's like 10 copies of BCF.
It's something to preserve, something to keep, man. Anyway, farewell to Basketball Card Fanatic Magazine for now. Adam, thanks for joining the channel. Thank you guys for watching as always. Keep collecting, stay positive in the hobby, and peace. Thanks, homie.